Now friends, there is one small change under the chapter of return, and that is with regard to filing of GSTR1. Now, as we understand, as of now only two returns are working. One is GSTR3B and another is GSTR1. With regard to GSTR3B, every person is required to file it on monthly basis. While with regard to GSTR1, a small criteria has been kept, which says that if your turnover in preceding financial year is up to 1.5 crore, then your criteria will be different. And if your turnover in year is exceeding 1.5 crore, then the criteria will be different. So technically, your turnover becomes your deciding criteria. Let us assume that the turnover criteria up to 1.5 crore turnover. So it says that if your turnover is up to 1.5 CR, then you are supposed to file your GSTR1 on, let's say, quarterly basis. And if your turnover exceeds 1.5 CR, then you are supposed to file your GSTR1 on monthly basis. So technically, your GSTR1 is required to be filed on the relevant basis. One is your GSTR1 is up to 1.5 crore and after 1.5 crore. If it is up to 1.5 crore, you are required to file it on quarterly basis. And if your turnover is exceeding 1.5 crore, then you are required to file that on monthly basis. So criteria is very clear that whether your turnover is up to 1.5 CR or is exceeding 1.5 CR. So accordingly, we will take a call that we are supposed to file your GSTR1 on monthly basis or on quarterly basis. And very important, keep this in mind with regard to GSTR2 and 3. As of now, all the dates have been extended, its applicability has been extended, and it has been mentioned that from June 2018, it has been mentioned that some specific criteria will be provided. Till June 2018, you are just supposed to file GSTR3B only. There is no need to file GSTR2 and GSTR3. For that, the dates will be provided. And technically, we are of the opinion that ultimately 2 and 3 bahar hi nikal jayega. That will be abolished, that will be removed from the law, and they will come out with some new return mechanism. But as of now, 2 and 3 is not applicable. 1 and 3B will always remain there. 3B is what we are as of now filing on monthly basis, and 1, as I said, depends on your turnover. If it is up to 1.5 crore or is exceeding 1.5 crore. The moment it exceeds 1.5 crore, it has to be on monthly basis. And if it is up to 1.5 crore, it will always remain on quarterly basis. So this is what we understand as applicability of return. Now let us talk about few more changes, and as of now under that category we are talking about a new chapter, and that is what we called as refund chapter. Now when I say refund chapter, so there are different possibilities or different situations in which the refunds are granted, and one of such situation given over here is with regard to refund in cases of CSD. Now when I say CSD is what we called as Canteen Stores Department. So when I say Canteen Stores Department, they come under Cantonment Board. So basically Army ka station is what we say as Cantonment Board. So Cantonment Board is technically called as a local authority under the GST Act. So technically when we talk about Cantonment Board or CSD, we do identify them not as government, but we identify them as local authorities. Now a specific criteria has been brought with regard to CSD, that if I am a person who is supplying goods or services to CSD, then in regard to that, obviously I am going to charge GST because this is not exempt. When you supply something to local authorities or as I said Cantonment Board or CSD, uske liye koi exemption hai nahi law mein. So now we bifurcate that into two categories, whether I am supplying goods to CSD or I am supplying services to CSD. If I supply services to CSD, then also GST is payable. If I supply goods to CSD, then also GST is payable. But the provision is very clear that when I supply goods to CSD, and those goods will be used by CSD for authorized operations of CSD, क्या होता है authorized operation वो मैं समझाता हूँ. But when I supply goods to CSD, which are used by CSD for authorized operations of CSD, then in that case, whatever GST I have charged on at the time of supplying goods to CSD, out of that 50% amount will be refunded to the CSD in under this particular case. So for example, अगर मैं CSD को 1 लाख रुपए के गुड सप्लाई करता हूं जिसके ऊपर 18% के हिसाब से 18,000 रुपए का GST चार्ज हुआ है, so out of this 18,000, 9,000 refund will be granted to canteen stores department, which is a great benefit to them. Earlier ऐसा कोई criteria नहीं था, तो earlier पूरा का पूरा 18,000 का GST उनके लिए burden बन जाता था. But now what will happen is 18,000 में से 9,000 का उन्हें refund मिल जाएगा. So to the extent of 50%, obviously it's a welcome change from the perspective of the CSD. Now, when I say CSD, it's basically canteen stores department. So we follow the word stores department. Basically, they are the departmental stores from where the authorized persons are supposed to acquire goods. So Indian Army के officers है, naval officers है, Air Force के officers है, they buy goods from the canteen stores department. So उनके लिए अलग से CSD अलग से purchase करता है. So जैसे हम लोग अपने कोई regular requirement की चीजें हो तो Reliance Fresh में जाके buy करते हैं, या फिर why only grocery products? I'm talking about all things. Even the army people buy vehicles from the CSD departments. So canteen stores department. They don't buy vehicles from the normal stores or normal authorized dealers of the car company. They buy it through CSD. So what will happen is a car company will provide car to CSD, and from CSD you will be able to buy it. So in such cases, what will happen is when you are buying it through CSD, so in that cases the car company will charge all the GST in the name of CSD, and at a later stage the CSD will be eligible to obtain 50% refund of the GST charged on them. And CSD will always supply those goods without tax to the authorized officers, that is army officers or naval officers or Air Force officers. So always keep this in mind that 50% refund will be granted to the CSD for all the goods that they have acquired. See, this is only in relation to goods. This is nowhere related to services. So all the goods that I supply to CSD, 50% refund will be granted to canteen stores department. So this is what we understand as CSD eligible for 50% refund of GST paid on inward supplies of goods received by them. And अगर आप रेफर करोगे तो एक स्पेसिफिक क्राइटेरिया डाल दिया है यहाँ पे, नोटिफिकेशन नंबर दिया है 6/2017 effective from 28 June and so. A specific criteria has been brought over here which says that 50% of the applicable GST paid by it on all inward supply of goods. So it is very clearly inward supply of goods received by it for the purpose of subsequent supply of such goods to unit-run canteens of the CSD or to the authorized customers of the CSD. So when I say authorized customers of the CSD, it means army officers or naval officers or Air Force officers. So they are the authorized customers of the CSD, and in such cases, the CSD department will be eligible for 50% of the refund. So that is one of the first point that we were supposed to cover up under the CSD category. Let us talk about few more changes. The second point which is mentioned over here is specified agencies entitled to claim a refund of GST paid on notified supplies received by them or specified by the central government. So basically, जो specified agencies है, that means we are talking about agencies of let's say UN. So UNESCO है, UNICEF है, they are the agencies of UN. So specified agencies entitled to claim refund of GST paid on notified supplies. So जो भी notified supplies है, उस पे जो GST paid है, उसके refund के regarding ये particular provision identify हुआ है. Now the point is specified agencies कौन notify करेगा? तो उसके लिए सेक्शन 55 ऑफ CGST एक्ट है, जिसके अंदर स्पेसिफाइड एजेंसीज में कौन सी स्पेसिफाइड एजेंसीज है उसका लिस्ट ऑलरेडी दे दिया गया है. द फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज यूनाइटेड नेशंस और अ स्पेसिफाइड इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. सो कोई भी स्पेसिफाइड इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और मे बी इवन वर्ल्ड बैंक कैन बी काउंटेड. And second point which says the foreign diplomatic mission or a consular post in India. So as we say foreign embassies or a diplomatic agents or carrier consular officers posted therein. So अगर ये सारे लोगों की हम बात करें तो ये लोग अगर स्पेसिफाइड सप्लाईज रिसीव कर रहे हैं तो ये स्पेसिफाइड सप्लाईज के ऊपर जितना भी GST चार्ज है उसके रिफंड के लिए प्रोविजन यहाँ पे बनाया गया है. सो अकॉर्डिंगली दे आर एलिजिबल फॉर द रिफंड ऑफ द GST चार्ज ऑन देम. And very important point, when I say those whatever goods or services that they have acquired, there are conditions provided with regard to that the goods have been put to use or are in use, as the case may be, of the mission or consulate. So I mean, obviously it should be used for authorized purpose only. You can't use it for other purpose. So for example, अगर हम ये बोले कि consulate, foreign embassy या consulate general जो इंडिया में है वो goods acquire कर रहे हैं, तो obviously it should have been used for the authorized operations of the consulate, and in such cases only refund will be granted, otherwise refund grant नहीं होगा. अच्छा, very important point, जो invoice बनेगा उस invoice के अंदर सप्लायर ने अपना नाम और एड्रेस और GSTIN वो सब तो लिखा ही होगा, बट रेसिपिएंट कैटेगरी में इस UN या इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का नाम और एड्रेस और उनका UIN is what we consider their registration, तो UIN नंबर कोड हो जाना चाहिए. ये सारी डिटेल्स प्रॉपरली कोड होनी चाहिए. अगर ये सारी डिटेल्स प्रॉपरली कोड होगी तो ही रिफंड के लिए एलिजिबल है. अच्छा, फर्दर क्राइटेरियाज बताए गए कि UIN वालों को अपना जो रिटर्न सबमिट करना है उसके अंदर उनको सारे इनवर्ड सप्लाई का समरी सबमिट करना है, दैट दिस आर द इनवर्ड्स दैट दे हैव अक्वायर्ड इन अ पर्टिकुलर पीरियड फॉर विच दे आर सीकिंग द रिफंड. ये सारी चीजें रेलेवेंट है. अगर ये सारी चीजें होगी तो ही आपको रिफंड मिलेगा, अदरवाइज आप रिफंड के लिए एलिजिबल नहीं हो. सो ऑलवेज कीप दिस इन माइंड दैट अ स्पेसिफिक क्राइटेरिया हैज बीन क्रिएटेड विथ रिगार्ड टू द रिफंड ऑफ द स्पेसिफाइड एजेंसीज. Very important point. So that has been covered by notification number 13 by 2017. Now moving ahead with the next point, and that is in relation to deemed export. And when I say deemed export, तो जो original clause आया था deemed export के regarding, I think everybody remembers deemed export में mainly हम लोग 3 टाइप के transactions cover करते हैं, 4 टाइप के transactions cover करते हैं. Number 1, that is supply of goods to an EOU. Number 2, supply of goods against advance authorization scheme. Number 3, supply of goods against EPCG scheme. And number 4, supply of gold in relation to again an advance authorization scheme for public sector unit का वो criteria, public sector bank का वो criteria है. अब वो 4 categories है जिसको हम deemed exports category में cover करते हैं. Now technically what happens is, in case of deemed exports, when we supply to an EOU or we supply to someone against advance authorization scheme or we supply to someone against EPCG scheme, then technically we are supposed to charge GST on them, and they are eligible to obtain refund of such GST which has been charged on them. So original clause जो deemed export के refund के लिए था वो बहुत clear था. Only recipient of deemed export supply are eligible for the refund. So a supplier will charge GST on the recipient, and recipient will apply for the refund of the GST charged on him. Now the clause has been amended and a very clear criteria has been brought under this category, which says that even the supplier of the deemed export is eligible for refund. So for example, मेरी एक कंपनी है जिसका नाम है ABC Enterprise, और यहाँ पे एक EOU है जिसको मैं गुड सप्लाई कर रहा हूँ. तो ABC Enterprise जब EOU को गुड सप्लाई करेगा, so there are 2 perspectives. Number 1, ABC Enterprise EOU से GST कलेक्ट करके गवर्नमेंट को डिपॉजिट कर देगा, एंड EOU being a recipient of deemed export supply is eligible for refund. ये क्लॉज पहले से ही लॉ के अंदर डाला गया है. At a later stage, this clarification or this amendment has been brought, which very clearly says that if required, even a supplier can apply for the refund of the deemed export. So for example, अगर ABC Enterprise EOU को सप्लाई कर रहा है, तो अब दूसरा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ये वर्क करेगा कि जो ABC Enterprises है वो सप्लाई करने के टाइम पे, EOU को सप्लाई करने के टाइम पे GST भर देगा गवर्नमेंट को, बट वो GST वो अपनी जेब से भरेगा, वो अपने रेसिपिएंट यानी EOU से GST कलेक्ट नहीं करेगा. सी फ्रेंड्स, अगर ABC एंटरप्राइज अपने कस्टमर, अपने रेसिपिएंट से GST कलेक्ट कर लेता है तो अब तो रिफंड रेसिपिएंट को ही लेना है, सप्लायर ये रिफंड क्लेम कर ही नहीं सकता. बट अगर सप्लायर GST भर दे, अपनी जेब से GST भर दे, EOU के ऊपर GST का बर्डन पास ऑन ना करे, अगर EOU ये डिक्लेरेशन दे रहा है that yes, the burden is not passed on us, then in such case the supplier is eligible to obtain the refund of the GST that they have paid from their own pocket. So always keep that in mind. Okay, whenever we think of deemed export, so you need to understand that yes, deemed export करने के time पे या deemed export supply करने के time पे आपको जीएसटी चार्ज करना है. अब दो पॉसिबिलिटी है, या तो आप वो जीएसटी अपने रेसिपिएंट यानी ईओयू से कलेक्ट करके गवर्नमेंट को भरो, या फिर वो जीएसटी आप अपनी जेब से भरो और बाद में आप खुद रिफंड ले लो. अगर आप जीएसटी अपने कस्टमर यानी ईओयू से कलेक्ट करके जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट को भर रहे हो, तो उस केस में जो रिफंड मिलेगा वो तुम्हारे रेसिपिएंट को मिलेगा यानी ईओयू को मिलेगा, बिकॉज उनके इनवर्ड पे जीएसटी होगा, बट वो ये चीज को एक्सपोर्ट के लिए यूज करेंगे तो आउटवर्ड पे जीएसटी नहीं होगा, तो उन्हें रिफंड दे दिया जाएगा. The other side is on our side, whereby when we supply to them, we don't charge GST from them. We pay GST, but we don't charge it from them. So since we pay GST from our own pocket, so refund will be granted to us. So prior to this amendment, only the recipient was eligible to obtain refund in case of deemed export supplies. Now even the supplier is eligible to claim refund in case of deemed export supplies. The only relevant condition over here is a declaration is required from the recipient that he is not going to claim the refund and the tax burden is not passed on to him. In such case, आपको refund मिल जाएगा. So this is the third point which we discuss under the refund chapter. The fourth one is with regard to evidences to be produced by the supplier of deemed export for claiming a refund. So I have already communicated that the in case of deemed export, either the supplier or the recipient. The normal clause is very clear that the recipient is supposed to obtain refund. But now, as I said, even the supplier of deemed export is eligible to claim refund. So in such case, the supplier is supposed to provide the documents, the evidence that he is eligible for refund. And that evidence is nothing. As I said, two things are required: a declaration from the recipient that the tax burden has been charged on the recipient, has not been charged on the recipient, and the second, that the recipient is supposed to declare that he is not going to claim the refund of the GST component. So recipient GST component का refund मांगेगा नहीं और हमने उसके ऊपर टैक्स बर्डन पास ऑन नहीं किया, ये दो डॉक्यूमेंट्स इनफ है टू गेट द रिफंड एज अ सप्लायर. सो बेसिकली ज्यादा कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेशन की जरूरत नहीं है, एज अ सप्लायर आपको रिफंड मिल जाएगा. सो थर्ड एंड फोर्थ आर ऑलमोस्ट ऑन द सेम लाइन जो यहाँ पे हमारे लिए अमेंडमेंट्स है और दे आर वेलकम चेंज फॉर इंडस्ट्री इटसेल्फ कि हर बार जरूरी नहीं है कि रिसिपिएंट रिफंड मांगे, इवन अ सप्लायर इज एलिजिबल टू ऑब्टेन रिफंड. Let us move towards the subsequent point, and that is with regard to zero rated supplies and the formula of that. And same way आगे inverted tax structure के भी formula में कुछ छोटे मोटे changes है. So let us talk about the zero rated supply formula and let us talk about the inverted rated structure formula. Friends, whenever we will talk about the change in formula, what we first need to understand is Rule 89, Sub-Rule 4A and 4B, which are the newly inserted sub-rules. Now, basically, entire formula is governed by Rule 89, Sub-Rule 4. But the changes that has been given under this formula are actually based on the new insertions of the Rule 89, Sub-Rule 4A and 4B. So first, let us talk about the Sub-Rule 4A and 4B. So when I say Sub-Rule 4A and 4B, so this is your Sub-Rule 4A and this is your Sub-Rule 4B. Now technically first let us talk about Sub-Rule 4A. So it mainly talks about notification number 48 by 2017. Now when I say notification number 48 by 2017, it relates to what we call as deemed exports, as you can read over here. So now if I say that I have made a deemed export, and in case of deemed export, either my recipient will obtain refund or I am going to obtain refund. The moment I say that I am going to obtain refund, so for that a new Sub-Rule 4A has been inserted, which very clearly says that whatever goods I have supplied to the recipient under the category of deemed export, in relation to the same, I am going to obtain the refund. To the extent, as we have already discussed, the recipient will give declaration that he is not going to claim the refund. So if the recipient is giving declaration that he is not going to claim the refund, then as a supplier, whatever goods I have supplied to him, accordingly to that extent I am going to obtain the refund. So for that we have notification number 48 by 2017 and we have Sub-Rule 4A under Rule 89. In a similar manner, there is one more clause that has been created whereby we are talking about Sub-Rule 4B under Rule 89. Now, sub-rule 4B mainly relates to relates to a particular transaction whereby as a person, I am not directly making export, rather I am supplying to a merchant exporter. So when I say I am supplying to a merchant exporter, so it has been very clear at a concessional rate where 0.05 CGST and 0.05 SGST will be charged, or maybe 0.1% IGST will be charged. So technically, whenever I supply goods to a merchant exporters, so I am supplying to a merchant who will later on make an export, and since he is going to make an export, so I am going to charge GST only at the rate 0.1% rather than charging full GST. So for supply of goods made to merchant export for the purpose of export, so ये पहला point है जो notification number 40/2017 में cover होगा, so accordingly हमारे sub rule 4B में cover हो जाएगा. Or the second point which is given under sub-rule 4B talks about notification number 78/2017, which very clearly talks about 78 or 79/2017, which very clearly talks about import of goods. When I say import of goods by EOUs, advance authorization, EPCG scheme या और such schemes, अगर इन स्कीम्स में इंपोर्ट किया गया और बाद में आप उसका रिफंड क्लेम करने वाले हो अंडर कस्टम्स, दिस इज नॉट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट जीएसटी, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट कस्टम्स. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग ओवर हियर इज कि फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं ये बोल रहा हूं कि मैं एज एन ईओयू गुड्स मंगवा रहा हूं फ्रॉम आउटसाइड इंडिया, सो आई एम इंपोर्टिंग गुड्स बट आई एम इंपोर्टिंग एज एन ईओयू, or I am importing under advance authorization scheme, or I am importing under EPCG scheme, then all these schemes very clearly says that yes, you can obtain goods without payment of tax, and at a later stage you can use it in manufacturing of finished goods which will be exported. The other option that is available over there is that initially you pay taxes. Whatever taxes are applicable at the time of import, initially you pay taxes as an EOU or as an EPCG scheme holder or as an advance authorization holder. So initially you pay all taxes. Whatever taxes you pay at the time of import, later on you use those materials or capital goods in manufacturing of processed goods and you export processed goods. And when you export processed goods, they are going to still grant you a refund of the taxes paid on purchases. So on purchases, whatever taxes you have paid at the time of import, those taxes will be refunded to you at a later stage. There was a specific scheme. Those who are aware of EPCG, there is a called post-export EPCG benefit. So in that, this criteria happens that at the time of import, you have paid all taxes. And at a later stage, when you make finished goods out of it and you export those finished goods, then you are eligible for post-export EPCG category, and that is what we are referring at this stage. So notification number 78 and 79 talks about post-export benefits under advance authorization scheme, under EPCG scheme or such other schemes. So basically, sub-rule 4B of rule 89 talks about two type of provisions. The first provision, as I am referring, is related to notification number 40/2017, where we talk about merchant export transaction. The second provision which we are talking about is import of goods by EOU or maybe under EPCG scheme or under advance authorization scheme. In both the categories, the rule is very clear that if I am doing merchant export, so I am charging 0.1% on my output. So technically I am charging very nominal amount while my inwards are with full taxes. So obviously I may have an unutilized ITC because of that. Or I am talking about notification number 78 or 79 of 2017 under Customs Act, whereby I have imported goods with taxes, and at a later stage I am obtaining refund of those taxes after making an export of the specified amount under 78 or 79 of customs. So in again these two categories I am obtaining refund of my inward. So rule 4B grants refund of inward in both the scenarios, and rule 4A grant refund of inward under deemed export category. अच्छा, always याद रखना, यहाँ पे भी हम लोग EOU को सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पे भी हम एडवांस ऑथोराइजेशन में सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, या यहाँ पे भी हम EPCG में सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, दैट इज डीम्ड एक्सपोर्ट. बट यहाँ पे हम लोकल मार्केट में और हम उन्हें सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, और बिकॉज हम EOU, EPCG या एडवांस ऑथोराइजेशन में सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, तो हमारे ऊपर जो टैक्सेस है उसके बर्डन के रिफंड की बात है. जबकि यहां पे जो नोटिफिकेशन 78 और 79/2017 है, वहां पे ईओयू या ईपीसीजी स्कीम वाले या एडवांस ऑथोराइजेशन स्कीम वाले खुद ही बाहर से इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, दे आर इंपोर्टिंग फ्रॉम आउटसाइड इंडिया, और उसके केस में इंपोर्ट के ऊपर जो टैक्सेस है उसके रिफंड की बात है। सो प्लीज डू नॉट गेट कंफ्यूज कि यहां पे ऊपर भी ईओयू है और नीचे भी ईओयू है, बट ऊपर जो 4A वाला ईओयू है या ईपीसीजी है, यहां पे हम सप्लायर के व्यू पॉइंट से सोच रहे हैं कि भाई एज अ सप्लायर मैंने ईओयू को दिया, एज अ सप्लायर मैंने एडवांस ऑथोराइजेशन में दिया, तो मेरे ऊपर जो टैक्सेस है उसके रिफंड की बात है। जबकि यहां पे ईओयू ने इंपोर्ट किया या ईपीसीजी वाले ने इंपोर्ट किया या एडवांस ऑथोराइजेशन वाले ने इंपोर्ट किया, तो उनके इंपोर्ट के ऊपर जो टैक्सेस है उसके रिफंड की बात है। सो रूल 4A इज स्पेसिफिक, रूल 4B इज स्पेसिफिक। अल्टीमेटली सी पॉइंट is very clear कि you are either making export or you are supplying to a merchant exporter who is making export. So since you are making export, you are going to generate foreign exchange, and since you are generating foreign exchange, तो आपके ऊपर जो भी टैक्स बर्डन है गवर्नमेंट उसका रिफंड दे देगा, अप्लाइंग रूल 4A और अप्लाइंग रूल 4B. Now since they have introduced new rules, that is rule 4A and 4B, तो उसके कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग अमेंडमेंट्स देखने मिले आपको रूल 4 के अंदर, एंड रूल 4 इज नथिंग बट व्हाट वी कॉल्ड एज जीरो रेटेड ट्रांजैक्शंस, सो एक्सपोर्ट ट्रांजैक्शंस। सो एक्सपोर्ट ट्रांजैक्शंस और एसईजेड के ट्रांजैक्शंस के जो जनरलाइज रिफंड थे वो सारे के सारे रूल 4 के अंदर आते थे, और बिकॉज 4A और 4B इंट्रोड्यूस हो गया तो ये रूल 4 के फॉर्मूलाज अमेंड हो गए। नाउ व्हाट इज द फॉर्मूला गिवन अंडर रूल 4? इनफैक्ट पहले भी यही फॉर्मूला था, अभी भी यही फॉर्मूला है, which very clearly says turnover of zero rated supply of goods plus turnover of zero rated supply of services, as you can read over here. Divide by adjusted total turnover and entire component multiply with the net ITC. So technically what will happen is कि अगर मान लो कि मैं ओनली जीरो रेटेड यानी एक्सपोर्ट्स के ट्रांजैक्शन या एसईजेड के ट्रांजैक्शन ही कर रहा हूं, तो ऊपर का जो टर्नओवर होगा वो भी एक्स होगा और टोटल टर्नओवर होगा वो भी एक्स होगा। सो दैट मीन्स एक्स डिवाइड बाय एक्स इज 100% ऑफ नेट आईटीसी, आई एम एलिजिबल फॉर रिफंड। सो यही फॉर्मूला था जिसके हिसाब से हम रिफंड कैलकुलेट करते थे। इनफैक्ट ये फॉर्मूला पहले भी था और आज भी है, बट जो डिफरेंसेज है वो ये फॉर्मूला में जो ईच टर्म दी गई है उसके एक्सप्लेनेशन में है। So let us talk about those differences. So the first difference that you need to understand is under the net ITC category. So net ITC में हम लोग पहले से inputs और input services दोनों की credit की बात करते थे, but the amended provision would now say as credit availed on inputs and input services during the relevant period other than the input tax credit availed for which refund is claimed under 4A and 4B. तो कि जो आईटीसी जिसके लिए आप रिफंड क्लेम करने वाले हो अंडर रूल 4A और अंडर रूल 4B, देन लॉजिकल है ना कि अगर मान लो कि मैंने 1 लाख यूनिट्स एक पर्टिकुलर पीरियड में सप्लाई की है, उसमें से 90,000 मैंने एक्चुअली जीरो रेटेड यानी आउटसाइड इंडिया सप्लाई किया हुआ है, बट 10,000 यूनिट्स ऐसे है जो मैं डीम्ड एक्सपोर्ट कैटेगरी में सप्लाई कर रहा हूं। तो जो 10,000 यूनिट्स है जो मैं डीम्ड एक्सपोर्ट कैटेगरी में सप्लाई कर रहा हूं, उसके आईटीसी के हिसाब से जो मैं रिफंड मांगूंगा मैं वो रूल 4A के अंदर मांगने वाला हूं। सो ऑब्वियसली ना मुझे 10,000 यूनिट्स का टर्नओवर रूल 4 के फॉर्मूला में लाना है, ना ही मुझे 10,000 यूनिट्स जो अक्वायर किए उसके एट्रीब्यूटेबल जो आईटीसी है उसका रिफंड का कैलकुलेशन रूल 4 के अंदर लाना है। Because we very clearly identify that zero rated is separate category and deemed exports is separate category. तो deemed export वाली क्वांटिटी के लिए जो रिफंड है वो रूल 4A के अंदर मांगना है, और जीरो रेटेड वालों के लिए जो रिफंड है वो रूल 4 के अंदर मांगना है। तो अगर जीरो रेटेड के लिए रिफंड रूल 4 के अंदर मांगना है, सो ऑब्वियसली वो जीरो रेटेड का ही कैलकुलेशन मुझे इन्वॉल्व करना है। जो डीम्ड एक्सपोर्ट का कैलकुलेशन है वो मैं रूल 4 के कैलकुलेशन से बाहर रख दूंगा, मैं उसे कहीं पे भी इन्वॉल्व नहीं करूंगा। तो अकॉर्डिंगली इसी कारण कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग चेंजेस आ गए कि भाई नेट आईटीसी की फॉर्मूला में बहुत क्लियरली बोल दिया कि रूल 4A और 4B के में जो भी ट्रांजैक्शन हुए हैं उसके एट्रीब्यूटेबल जो आईटीसी है वो कभी भी आप रूल 4 के नेट आईटीसी में मत डालो। सेम इज अ पॉइंट गिवन फॉर टर्नओवर ऑफ जीरो रेटेड सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स, कि भाई जब हम टर्नओवर्स काउंट कर रहे हैं, चाहे जीरो रेटेड सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स का टर्नओवर काउंट करें कि एडजस्टेड टोटल टर्नओवर काउंट करें, ऑलवेज कीप दिस इन माइंड कि उस टर्नओवर के अंदर कहीं पे भी रूल 4A और 4B के एट्रीब्यूटेबल जो टर्नओवर है वो नहीं आना चाहिए। सी वेरी क्लियरली मेंशन, यहाँ पे एडजस्टेड टर्नओवर के लिए बोला हुआ है और नीचे से आप रेफर कर सकते हो, बहुत क्लियरली ये पॉइंट निकाल दिया है कि टर्नओवर ऑफ सप्लाईज इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ विच रिफंड इज क्लेम अंडर सब रूल 4A and 4B एंड विच इज लॉजिकली करेक्ट ऑल्सो, कि अगर मैं रूल 4A और 4B के अंदर ऑलरेडी उसका रिफंड ऑब्टेन कर लेता हूं तो मैं उससे क्यों टोटल टर्नओवर की फॉर्मूला में या कहीं पे भी लाऊं। सो व्हाट विल हैपन इज, नाउ माय फॉर्मूला विल बी वेरी क्लियर, टर्नओवर ऑफ जीरो रेटेड सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स और सर्विसेज डिवाइड बाय एडजस्टेड टर्नओवर or total turnover whole multiplied with net ITC, but always keep this in mind, कहीं पे भी 4A और 4B का टर्नओवर भी नहीं दिखना चाहिए और 4A और 4B के ट्रांजैक्शंस का कहीं पे भी ITC भी नहीं आना चाहिए। अगर आप वो दोनों जगह पे कैलकुलेट करोगे 4A 4B, यानी 4A 4B का रिफंड 4A 4B सब रूल में भी मांगोगे और रूल 4 के अंदर फॉर्मूला के अंदर भी उसे इन्वॉल्व करोगे, देन इट इज टेक्निकली रॉन्ग। So that is where they have created a very specific rule under rule 89, सब रूल 4 में मॉडिफिकेशन किया, सब रूल 4A और 4B न्यूली इंट्रोड्यूस किया। एंड लेट अस टॉक अबाउट इन्वर्टेड टेक्स्ट स्ट्रक्चर की जो फॉर्मूला है उसमें भी उसके कारण कितना चेंज आ रहा है, दैट इज अंडर रूल सब रूल 5, यानी 89(5) के अंदर भी इसके कारण चेंज आएगा, दैट इज इन्वर्टेड टेक्स्ट स्ट्रक्चर के जो प्रोविजन है उसके रिगार्डिंग। उसमें भी जो फॉर्मूला पहले दी गई थी वही फॉर्मूला कैरी ऑन हुई है, फॉर्मूला मॉडिफाई नहीं हुई है, बट फॉर्मूला के अंदर जो डिनोशंस है, जो हर एक चीज को एक्सप्लेन किया गया है, दैट हैज बीन मॉडिफाइड वेरी क्लियरली एज यू कैन रीड ओवर हियर। जो नेट आईटीसी का फॉर्मूला है उसमें बहुत क्लियरली बोल दिया है कि जो रूल 4A और 4B के रिगार्डिंग जितना भी आपका यूनिट्स है या आपका टर्नओवर है उसके एट्रीब्यूटेबल जो भी आईटीसी है वो अब रूल 5 के इन्वर्टेड टेक्स्ट स्ट्रक्चर के रिफंड के फॉर्मूला के अंदर मत लाओ, और सेम वे जो एडजस्टेड टोटल टर्नओवर रहेगा जो आप रूल 5 के अंदर कैलकुलेट कर रहे हो उसमें भी आप रूल 4A, सब रूल 4A और सब रूल 4B के टर्नओवर को काउंट मत करो, और एल्स इट वुड रिजल्ट इनटू डुप्लीकेशन। सो बेसिकली अब तक हम लोगों के पास दो ही रूल्स थे, सब रूल 4 एंड सब रूल 5। सब रूल 4 जीरो रेटेड की बात करता था, सब रूल 5 इन्वर्टेड टेक्स्ट स्ट्रक्चर के केस में रिफंड की बात करता था, बट अब बीच में और दो प्रोविजन ऐड हो गए, 4A एंड 4B। 4A talks about, as I said, deemed export. 4B talks about merchant export transactions and import transactions by EOU, EPCG or such other players. Now, since 4A and 4B are very specific, तो अगर उसके रिगार्डिंग कहीं पे भी रिफंड है तो आप वो 4A और 4B के हिसाब से ही क्लेम करो, और उस टर्नओवर और उस आईटीसी को रूल 4 के कैलकुलेशन से भी बाहर निकाल दो और रूल 5 के कैलकुलेशन से भी बाहर निकाल दो, सो दैट डुप्लीकेशन कहीं पे भी ना हो। सो दिस इज व्हाट वी अंडरस्टैंड विथ रिगार्ड टू द अमेंडमेंट्स इन रिफंड चैप्टर। There are few more clarifications which has been brought. Let us discuss one by one such clarifications. Now friends, two more clarification has been brought with regard to section 55 refund. Now section 55 refund, as we have already discussed a few minutes ago, that talks about transactions of foreign embassies or foreign consulate offices or embassy offices and foreign diplomatic missions, and is also talking about UN or other specified agencies. Now technically there are 2 points. Number one point is the rule 95 sub rule 1 has been amended. टेक्निकली सेक्शन 55 के रिगार्डिंग जो रिफंड क्लेम करने की प्रोसीजर थी वो रूल 95 के अंदर दिया था, and rule 95 was very clearly saying that every person who is eligible for refund on the inward supplies, that means UN and other agencies are eligible for the GST charge on inward supplies. So any person or any agency who is eligible for refund of the GST charge on inward supplies under section 55 was required to make an application on common portal electronically. Maybe by them on their own, or maybe through the centers appointed by or designated by the GST department. Now this provision has been amended, and it has been very clearly said that such person can make an application online on common portal, so electronically on common portal, or even otherwise. When I use the word as or even otherwise, that means the manual application has been allowed. So those people which are eligible to obtain refund under section 55 on the taxes charged on inward supplies can obtain refund of the taxes. And when I say can obtain refund of the taxes, would very clearly mean they can obtain refund by even submitting manual application. Earlier they were mandatorily required to submit an online application. Manual application was not allowed, but now the manual application has been allowed. So anyone can submit an application manually and obtain the refund in that regard. So I mean, like specified person can submit the application manually and obtain the refund in that regard. So this is one of the first change. And the second change is with regard to threshold limit on single invoice. So for example, अगर UN की अगर हम बात करें या UN की कोई agency की अगर हम बात करें, तो on their purchases, whatever GST was charged, they are eligible to obtain refund. But there was a criteria which was very clear that on a single invoice, the amount mentioned shall not be less than 5,000 rupees. There was a specific criteria which very clearly says that price of a supplier covered under single tax invoice, as you can read over here, price of a supply covered under single tax invoice exceeded 5,000 rupees, then only आपको refund मिलेगा. So अगर जो price mention है in a single tax invoice is less than 5,000, then technically उसके refund के लिए कोई clause नहीं था. Now such monetary limits has been removed. Threshold monetary limit of the price of the supply covered under single tax invoice for claiming refund by such applicants has been removed. So as of now, even on the single tax invoice, the price is less than 5,000 rupees, then also they are eligible to claim refund. And if I say the price is exceeding 5,000, then refund is allowed. That is perfectly clear. But if price is less than 5,000 in a single tax invoice, then also the refund is allowed. So technically that is where we discuss section 55 rule 95. So always keep this in mind. Section 55 rule 95 is a very clear provision that two changes have been brought. Number one, all the applicants under section 55 can submit an application manually, and number two, there is no single tax invoice price limit which was earlier 5,000 rupees, but that limit has been removed. So these are the two clauses that we need to keep in mind. There are a few more changes, and changes are with regard to rule 96, where we think of IGST refund and GST paid on output in case of exports, and then later on obtaining refund of that. So let us talk about such change.